All right, strap in, everyone. Today, we are going deep into Eli Lilly and Company, and we're using their 2024 proxy statement as our guide.
Ah, these statements. So much more than just corporate mumbo-jumbo, you know? You can actually glean a ton of insights into a company's values, strategies, and really how they see themselves fitting into the world.
Yeah, and let's face it, the pharmaceutical industry pretty much impacts everyone's life at some point, so that's about as big picture as it gets.
You're absolutely right. So think of this deep dive as like, I don't know, a backstage pass to this pharma giant where we'll try to figure out how decisions get made at the top, who's pulling the strings, and how they try to balance profits with, well, helping people, right?
All right, let's set the stage then. 2023 for Eli Lilly. Give us the highlight reel.
All right, so financially, they absolutely crushed it. Revenues hit a whopping $34.1 billion.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, puts them solidly in the top 10 pharma companies globally. Real industry heavyweight. And earnings per share, also strong, $5.80 reported, and on a non-GAAP basis, $6.32.
Non-GAAP. For those of us who aren't financial wizards.
Yeah, sorry. Basically, it's a way to look at earnings without certain costs, like one-time expenses, to get a clearer picture of how profitable they really are day to day. Oh, and their total shareholder return, massive, 61%. Beat out their peers and the whole S&P 500.
So basically a banner year if you were holding Eli Lilly stock. But what drove that kind of success? My guess would be new drugs, right?
You hit the nail on the head. They snagged approvals for some key drugs. Zepbound for obesity and Jaypirca, which is for leukemia. Oh, and they had some pretty exciting results from clinical trials for tirzepatide, a weight loss drug, and donanemab, which targets Alzheimer's. So yeah, they're going after some serious healthcare challenges.
It really makes you wonder who's behind these big moves. Let's talk about the board of directors.
This is where things get juicy. Get this, the average tenure on Eli Lilly's board, 8 years.
8 years?
Yeah, it might seem long, but honestly, it provides a lot of stability and, like, institutional knowledge, you know?
Right, so these aren't folks just hopping in and out. They've got roots, but does that mean, like, they lack fresh perspective?
Not at all. They value experience, for sure, but they've also really worked on diversifying the board. Age, gender, ethnicity, and, crucially, expertise.
Give us some examples. Who are these movers and shakers?
Well, we've got Catherine Biker. She's an economist who advises the U.S. government on healthcare policy. Then there's J. Eric Freerwald. He's actually a CEO with a background in, get this, agricultural technology. Interesting link there. And we can't forget William Kaelin, a Nobel laureate, cancer researcher, no less.
Whoa. All right, that is a power lineup. But a board is more than just names on a page, right? How do they actually function? Like, how are decisions made?
Very structured, I'll tell you that. First off, they keep the chairman and CEO roles separate, which is like governance 101. No single person has too much power that way.
Checks and balances. Smart.
Yeah.
But then who keeps things running smoothly if they're separated?
Well, that's where the lead independent director comes in. Someone with a, strong independent voice. They can guide the discussions and, challenge the CEO if they need to. And for Eli Lilly, that role is filled by, let's see.
Someone with a ton of experience, I bet. Wait, could it be Mr. Luciano?
Bingo. The statement actually calls out his diverse experience and outside perspective as key. And speaking of rigorous, their board assessment process, no joke, questionnaires, one-on-one discussions, even closed sessions just for evaluation.
So no rubber stamping going on here,
Yeah.
Real accountability. But where do we fit in? As shareholders, do we have any say?
Absolutely. Actually, a whole section of the proxy statement is dedicated to shareholder engagement and proposals. Like, it explains this thing called proxy access, where shareholders, under certain conditions, can nominate directors.
So it's not just a board picking their buddies. We have a voice. What kind of proposals are we talking about this year?
2 big ones for management. One is getting rid of the classified board structure.
Yeah.
That basically means all board members are elected annually. The other is nixing supermajority voting requirements. Both seem aimed at making the company more responsive to shareholders.
Sounds like they're moving towards being more democratic. But what about shareholder proposals? Any juicy ones this time around?
There's one about lobbying activities, which is causing a bit of a stir. Really highlights the power shareholders have to influence a company, even on, shall we say, sensitive issues.
Ooh, that sounds interesting. We'll have to unpack that one later. But first, let's talk about everyone's favorite topic, money, executive compensation.
Ah, yes. Always a fun one. Now, to be fair, Eli Lilly's average target compensation for their top execs is actually pretty much in line with the rest of the industry. No crazy outlandish salaries here.
Okay, keeping it reasonable, I like that. But I'm sure there are still some nice perks to leading a multi-billion-dollar company, right?
Of course. And here's where things get interesting. So their target compensation was comparable, right? But their bonuses and equity payouts, those actually ended up exceeding targets in 2023 because the company did so well. Basically, they get rewarded when Eli Lilly performs well too.
Performance-based pay. Makes sense. So give us the numbers. What are we talking about here?
All right, brace yourself. The CEO, Mr. Ricks, took home $25,611,764 in total compensation in 2023.
Okay, that is a lot of zeros. Break it down for us. What makes up that giant number?
So his base salary was $1,750,000, but the bulk of it came from stock awards, which were valued at $17,875,000, and then a bonus of $4,401,433. The statement breaks it all down, though, all the pieces: base salary, cash bonus, and all those long-term incentives, things like performance awards, shareholder value awards, and relative value awards.
So it's not just about taking home a big paycheck. Their pay is tied to how well Eli Lilly does as a whole. But, it's not all about money. What about their efforts beyond the bottom line, the whole doing good thing?
Good point.
Yeah.
Eli Lilly actually dedicates a good chunk of the statement to their commitments to, environmental sustainability and social impact.
Okay, but what does that actually look like? Are they just saying this to sound good, or are they actually taking action?
No, they're doing real stuff. For example, they've invested in this new solar array and battery storage system in Puerto Rico. Helps power their operations there with renewable energy.
Putting their money where their mouth is. I like it. What about on the social impact side? How are they addressing things like drug pricing and access?
They highlight their 18 global health partnerships and their commitment to expanding access to insulin. For example, they've got that $35 insulin cap in the U.S. They seem to get that being a big pharma company comes with responsibility, especially for medications that people need to, live.
Okay, but let's be real. Pharma has its fair share of controversy. The proxy statement mentions something about a shareholder proposal about human rights. What's the deal there?
Yes, things get a bit tricky here. Some shareholders think Eli Lilly needs a separate, full-blown human rights policy. They're concerned that some of the company's lobbying efforts might clash with what they say publicly about certain issues.
So, kind of a do as I say, not as I do situation.
Yeah, that's the gist.
Yeah.
These shareholders argue that this lack of transparency could hurt Eli Lilly's reputation. If it looks like they're saying one thing but working behind the scenes to undermine those same goals, people might lose trust, right?
Makes sense. So how does Eli Lilly respond to all this? Are they just ignoring it?
Not exactly. They're saying, look, we already disclosed tons of information about our political activities. They point to details about their employee political action committee, contributions to trade associations, and how the board keeps an eye on all of it.
So they're saying, we're already transparent enough.
Right. And they're also arguing that their political spending actually supports a wide range of views, shows they're engaging with, different groups on these complicated issues.
So they're not just backing one side of the aisle, trying to have a voice in the broader conversation about healthcare.
Exactly. And they also push back on the idea that they're trying to block efforts to lower drug prices. They say, look, we only oppose policies that we think will actually stifle innovation in medicine.
It's a tricky line to walk. Wanting to look like they support affordable health care, but also needing to, protect their profits and keep investing in research and development.
It really is. And this is where it gets interesting. See, they actually support parts of the Inflation Reduction Act, like that $35 insulin cap for Medicare. But they also highlight how they opposed other parts, like Medicare price negotiation, which they say would hurt drug discovery.
So it's not black and white. They're picking and choosing what to support based on, how they think it'll all shake out.
And that brings us to this bigger debate, right?
Yeah.
About what role the government should play in controlling drug prices and making sure healthcare is affordable. It's a debate without easy answers, but an important one.
And a debate that's playing out right here in this proxy statement. It's amazing how these, seemingly boring corporate documents can offer such a peek into how complicated the pharmaceutical industry really is.
It's not just about profits and losses. It's about navigating these ethical and societal questions that are honestly at the heart of healthcare.
And that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive. Not just understanding what Eli Lilly does, but why, and how their choices impact all of us.
We're all stakeholders in the healthcare system when you think about it.
Yeah.
The more we understand how it works, the better we can push for the changes we want to see.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll really dig into their governance structure, including how they choose and evaluate those powerful board members. And of course, we'll break down that shareholder proposal about lobbying. It's going to be good. Welcome back to our deep dive into Eli Lilly's 2024 proxy statement. Last time, we got a look at their financials and met the pretty impressive board of directors.
Yeah, and now we're going even deeper behind the scenes to see how that board is actually chosen and, more importantly, how they're held accountable, right?
Because with that kind of responsibility, you can't just assume everyone's, always doing the right thing.
Exactly. And Eli Lilly seems to get that. Their process for picking and evaluating directors is, honestly, pretty thorough.
So walk us through it. How do they find these superstars?
Well, it all starts with the Directors and Corporate Governance Committee. It's a group that's specifically focused on making sure the board has the right mix of skills and experience.
Sounds like a pretty important committee.
Oh, absolutely. They don't just, pick names out of a hat, you know? They actually get input from a bunch of sources, like current board members, shareholders, even those fancy executive search firms.
So it's not just about who you know. They actually want the best people for the job.
Right. And they consider everything, qualifications, experience, any potential conflicts of interest, the whole 9 yards. They're aiming for that sweet spot of expertise, integrity, and independence.
So no stone unturned. But let's say you make it through that first round. What happens next?
Well, it's not just a quick handshake and, welcome aboard. You actually have in-depth discussions with the chair of the board and a few independent directors, including, you guessed it,
Mr. Luciano.
Right. Got to have the lead independent director there to make sure you're not just going to be a yes man.
Exactly. It's about finding people who will, challenge the way things are done, ask the tough questions, and make sure the company is serving everyone, not just themselves.
Right. And even after you get a seat at the table, the scrutiny doesn't stop there.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Eli Lilly has this whole annual board evaluation process. We're talking questionnaires, one-on-one interviews with the lead independent director and the board chair, the whole shebang. And the results. They're shared with the entire board and all the committees.
Wow. So they take this accountability thing seriously, like a constant checkup to make sure the board is functioning at its best.
And it goes even further. They actually ask for feedback from shareholders, too, just to make sure the board is really representing their interests.
So it's a two-way street. The board answers to the company and the investors. Checks and balances.
Exactly. And speaking of accountability, remember that shareholder proposal about lobbying we talked about? That's where we really see this potential clash between, business interests and doing the right thing.
Yeah, that one was interesting. Remind us what it was about.
Right, so the proposal, it was put forward by a group of union pension funds, and it basically calls for Eli Lilly to publish a report every year detailing all their lobbying activities, full transparency about how they're using their influence to, shape healthcare policy.
Makes sense. After all, what happens in those backroom deals can have a huge impact on stuff like drug prices and, whether people can even get the health care they need.
Exactly. And the proposal specifically mentions concerns about times when Eli Lilly's lobbying seems to go against what they say publicly about certain issues, like making drugs affordable.
A little bit hypocritical.
Yeah, that's the idea. The shareholders are basically saying this lack of transparency is a risk for Eli Lilly. If it looks like they're talking the talk but not walking the walk, people might not trust them anymore.
Good point. So what does Eli Lilly say about all this? Are they just brushing it off?
Not quite. They argue that they already disclose a lot of information about their political activities. They point to details about their Employee Political Action Committee and how much they contribute to trade associations and how the board oversees it all.
So they're saying, hey, we're already pretty transparent.
Yeah. That's their argument.
Yeah.
They also say that their political spending actually covers a lot of different viewpoints, which shows they're engaging with all sorts of stakeholders on, complicated issues.
So they're not just playing for one team. They're trying to be part of the bigger conversation about healthcare.
Exactly. And they also really push back on the idea that they're trying to block efforts to lower drug prices. They say they only oppose policies they think will actually slow down medical innovation.
Tricky situation. They want to be seen as supporting affordable healthcare, but they also have to, protect their profits and keep investing in research and development.
It's a tough balance. And here's where it gets even more interesting. See, they actually support parts of the Inflation Reduction Act, like the $35 insulin cap for Medicare. But they also point out how they opposed other parts, like letting Medicare negotiate drug prices, which they argue would hurt the discovery of new drugs.
So it's not a simple issue. They're picking and choosing what they support based on how they think it'll all play out in the end.
And that really highlights this much bigger debate about what role the government should have in regulating drug prices and making sure everyone can afford health care. There's no easy answer, but it's a conversation we need to be having.
And it's a conversation that's playing out right here in this proxy statement. It's amazing how these, seemingly boring corporate documents can give us such a glimpse into the complexities of the whole pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, it's not just about profits and losses. It's about navigating these ethical and societal questions that are honestly at the core of healthcare.
And that's exactly why we're taking this deep dive. We're trying to understand not just what Eli Lilly does, but why they do it, and how their decisions affect all of us.
Because at the end of the day, we're all stakeholders in the healthcare system. And the more we understand about how it works, the better equipped we are to fight for the changes we want to see.
All right, we're back for the final part of our Eli Lilly proxy statement deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground already, board dynamics, lobbying, all that. But there's one big piece of the puzzle we haven't talked about yet. Executive compensation.
Oh, yeah. That's always a hot topic. And this proxy statement, it really lays it all out there, how Eli Lilly approaches this whole complex issue.
It's funny, people often think about executive pay as this separate thing, detached from the company's mission and all that. But really, when you think about it, they're totally intertwined.
You're so right. The way a company structures its compensation, it's like a powerful tool, right? It can really push people to act certain ways, and ultimately it shapes the decisions those leaders make. And for a company like Eli Lilly, those decisions can have huge consequences, impacting everything from how drugs are developed to, whether patients can actually get them.
So it's not just about rewarding CEOs for hitting those financial targets. It's about motivating them to do what's right for the company, for patients, for everyone.
Yeah, that's the goal, anyway. And this proxy statement, it actually gives us some interesting clues about how Eli Lilly tries to do that, to balance what shareholders want with what patients need.
One thing that really stood out to me was how much they emphasize tying executive pay to different things, not just profits. They're looking at innovation, what's in the pipeline, even environmental and social impact.
It's a more well-rounded approach, right? Recognizing that a pharma company's success isn't just about the money.
Exactly. And they're really open about how they actually calculate those compensation figures. They even explain adjustments made to the financial results to make sure things are fair and to prevent people from just focusing on the short-term wins.
That transparency, that's super important, especially in an industry that gets a lot of heat for, high drug prices. By being upfront about how they do things, Eli Lilly's basically inviting everyone, shareholders, the public, to take a look and judge for themselves.
It's a good reminder that these decisions aren't made in a vacuum. There's a lot of careful thought and a constant balancing act between all these different priorities.
It really shows us that executive compensation isn't just about, rewarding past performance. It's about trying to shape what people do in the future. By connecting pay to all these different things, Eli Lilly's sending a message, right? Success isn't just about profits. It's about making progress in research, making sure people can get the medications they need, and, even taking care of the environment.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Eli Lilly's 2024 proxy statement, what are the big takeaways here? What have we learned about this giant in the pharmaceutical world?
Well, we've gotten a peek behind the curtain, right? Their financial performance, how their board works, how they deal with shareholders, and how they approach some of these really thorny issues like lobbying and executive compensation. These documents, they might seem kind of dry and technical at first glance, but they're actually really valuable. They give us a window into how a company that plays a huge role in our healthcare system actually operates.
We've seen how they put together this diverse and experienced board, how they make decisions with the focus on accountability, and how they try to balance making money with doing good in the world. It's been quite the journey.
And now, it's your turn. Time for you, the listener, to think about the bigger picture. How do you think Eli Lilly balances their responsibility to shareholders with their commitment to patients and to society as a whole? What role should pharmaceutical companies have in tackling global health challenges? These are tough questions, no easy answers, but they're worth asking.
This deep dive, it's given you the information and tools to really think critically about the pharmaceutical industry. Now it's your turn. Keep digging, keep asking questions, keep learning. And that's it for us. We'll see you next time.